Okay, so Romans 4, Paul is really starting in chapter 3, verse 21. Paul has been talking to us about righteousness by faith. Righteousness, being restored to God. Fallen human beings, the story, we rebelled and went against God, and God has accomplished the work to restore us back to himself. He has made the way possible for us, you and I, to Gentiles even, Gentiles to be right with him, to live with peace with God, to live with a confidence in our eternity that we are the children of God. John in chapter 3 of his epistle says, behold, now are we sons of God, right? This is a restored relationship. This is righteousness. And Paul has been making this case that God did all the work to make righteousness possible for us by having Jesus pay the price. Jesus did the work. He was obedient. You get credit for his holiness. He paid the debt. You get credit and get declared innocent. He was restored back to life and sits at the right hand of God. And he says, now you get to refer to God the way I do. You now can call him Abba. You have the same relationship with God because you're in me. I carry you with me, and you are now restored. And he says it, Paul says it in Ephesians chapter 2, that just the same way he took Christ from the dead and seated him in the heavenly realms, he took us. We were dead in our sins, but he took us and he seated us with Christ in the heavenly realms. Jesus does all the work. Paul then in the first couple of verses of Romans 4 says, well, Jesus did the work, but do you have to come through the law? Do you have to first kind of become Jewish? Do you have to be good? Do you have to follow the 10 Commandments? Yes, we can't follow them perfectly, but are we supposed to come through? And Paul makes the case, nope, you don't come through the law. How do we know this? Abraham. Abraham's declared righteous. Abraham is restored back to God 400 and some years before the law is given. Clearly, the law must do something different. And we'll figure out what that does through the book of Romans. But the law is not the way to God. So then he asks the second question, starting in like verse 6 or something. And he says, well, what about circumcision? Is there a select group? Do you have to be part of a select group to have this offer of righteousness? And he says, no. And then he's going to dive in. He's going to answer in our text today. He's going to answer the question, well, why is it so easy? Why is it by faith only? Why only faith? Not becoming Jewish, not being personally holy, not being part of a select group. Why is it faith only? That's an important question, right? Why is it faith only? Paul's going to answer that question. He's going to do it through the life of Abraham. But if we're going to understand him, and I think we'll almost just be able to read it once we understand Abraham, it'll make way more sense. So we're going to start in Genesis today, and we're going to talk about Abraham. I'm going to assume you all know Abraham, right? He's the father of faith. God calls him Paul in this text, actually. He's going to be the father of faith. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Like, wow, the father of faith. He must be a pretty impressive guy. Couple things I want to say about that. First, no, he's not going to be that impressive. We're going to look at him, and really he's going to be the father of faith because he's going to be the first person God is going to declare righteous by faith. That's it. His faith, pretty common. Believe it or not, pretty common. The second thing I want to say about it is that the stories we have of Abraham, and this is true for every story, all the stories in the Bible are kind of hand-picked, right? They're teaching a point. We don't have anyone's just biography, like anyone. But Abraham is specifically true, or more concretely, the stories are handpicked because the text isn't getting written down when Abraham's alive. Who's writing Genesis? Moses is writing Genesis. Moses does not know the stories of Abraham. He's going to have to be told these by God. Abraham lives 450 years before Moses lives. Who lived 450 years ago that we could authoritatively write down their stories? Like, we would have to get taught those stories, right? So God actually has to tell Moses which stories of Abraham he wants him to write down. So that becomes super important. When it gets to the Moses stories, he could add some of his own. Yes, God's going to tell him which one, but he's actually living those ones out, right? See the difference? Let's walk through. So what we have in the life of Abraham, you might go, we have tons. We don't have that much. There's we have about 10 chapters of the book of Genesis. We have less on Abraham than we do on Joseph, right? We have way more on Joseph. We don't have that much text on Abraham. And there's only Genesis 12 through the early 20s, and even some of those chapters don't have a lot to do with Abraham. Pretty small list of stories. I'll bet the ones we have are really, really important if he's the father of faith, right? So let's walk through them. The first one, of course, is the very first story of Abraham, not his birth, but when God is going to call him to be his people. He's going to call Abraham out and say, I'm going to now reveal myself through your descendants. This is the Abrahamic covenant. This is the covenant that the whole rest of the Bible is built on, right here. I want you to hear the if clauses. Listen for the word if, yeah? The Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. How many times did the word if come up? 0. 0. This is an unconditional covenant. God is coming to Abraham and saying, this is what I'm going to do, right? I will. God puts himself on, and this is going to be the case Paul's going to make. Paul is going to make that the condition, the covenant that God first establishes to bless the whole world through, this is how I'm going to work in the world, is an unconditional covenant. It's one-sided. God is going to do the work. Now we have the life of Abraham. What is essentially, there's 2 stories. So Abraham's going to leave. He's going to leave his parents. And so the next 2 stories, and they're not really stories. It just says, on the way, this is what he did, and then he went here and he did it. What's the very first story? So the first 2 ones, on his way, he's going somewhere. He starts walking into the promised land, and God speaks to him again. And so Abraham builds an altar. And then he goes to where he's going to camp for a little while, and he builds another altar. That's it. That's all it says in like 4 verses. But then we get a story. What's the first story of the father of faith? No? in verse 10. So that there was only verse 4 to verse 9. 5 verses are just, he built a couple altars in the promised land, right? Here's the very first story. Now there was famine in the land. And Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. And he was about to enter Egypt, and he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians, when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and then they will kill me, but let you live. So say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you. When Abraham came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that Sarah was a very beautiful woman. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace. What's the very first story of Abraham? He gives Sarah away. Okay? All right. Abraham, you and Sarah, you're pretty old, you don't have kids yet, but I'm going to turn you into a great nation. What does that require? Children. Yes, it takes children. That's how this works, right? It's just math. You got a +1 eventually here, right? What does Abraham do? He gives Sarai away. Her names will get changed to Sarah coming up, but right now it's Sarai because Sarah means mother and all this other stuff. So Sarai, yes, he gives her away. Is this great faith? Is this kind of weak faith? Kind of sketchy. Women, kind of sketchy? Little sketchy, right? Little sketchy, Abraham. Did God tell him to go down to Egypt? No. Just says Abraham went. He could have done a lot of things. He just goes to Egypt. Does God say, tell them that she's your sister? Does God say that? No, he just does. Why does God give us this story? Again, God chose the stories we have. God wants us to see something here that's super important about faith, about Abraham. Yeah? He treated Abraham well for her sake, that's Pharaoh. And Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. All right, here's the consequences for this. Here's the consequences of Abraham's weak faith. What does Abraham get? Stuff. Lots of stuff. What was the covenant that God said to Abraham? Abraham, if you never give Sarah away, I'm going to bless you. Is that what he said? Nope, it's not what he said. He said, Abraham, I will bless you. Here's what you're going to read. If you read the story of Abraham, Abraham is going to screw up all the time, and God's just going to keep blessing him. God's going to make him immensely wealthy. He's going to make him immensely influential in his day and his culture. He's going to rescue people. Everything Abraham puts his hands to is going to be blessed. Why? Because God said that's what's going to happen. God said that's what's going to happen. Abraham is supposed to see that happening and be able to build his faith. No, God said this was going to happen. Look it just keeps happening. Right? God's doing it to build Abraham's faith. He's not doing it because Abraham has faith. He's not doing that. He's not doing it because Abraham is a man of immense faith. He's not. He's not at all. Right? That's a crazy first story. And then you get the story of Abraham and Lot in 13 and 14. And that's just where Abraham's stuff just keeps getting more and more. And Lot, his nephew, who likes Abraham, is also getting tons and tons of stuff. Why would Lot also be getting immense wealth? Does he belong to Abraham? He does. If I'm going to bless Abraham, if your children get blessed, is that a blessing to you? Yes, it is immensely. But he also said, I will bless those who bless you, right? Are Lot and Abraham friends? They are. And so the blessing, this is the covenant. And so they both get so much stuff that they just have to go different ways. And Abraham is just generous and loves Lot and says, you pick and I'll go where you don't. Because they have so much flocks, they can't stay together. There's too many. Lots of blessing. Right? That's chapters 13 and 14. Then we get to 15, right? This is the chapter. This section right here is where Abraham's going to be declared righteous. Listen to this text. Abraham, chapter 15. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield and your great reward. I got you, and my relationship with you should be enough for you, should satisfy you. I am your reward. First word, but. Good word, so Abraham. No, that would be a good word. So Abraham. No, that's not the word that's there. The word is but. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you do for me, since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Great faith? No. Every time, except the end. But every time, Abraham's faith is not painted very strongly. It's not. That's kind of like, you kind of said you were going to give me a kid, right? What am I supposed to do here, is what he's saying to God. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abraham believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. There it is. That's what he believed God about. You're going to have a kid. And Abraham believed God, and it was credited, it was counted, his faith counted as righteousness. Yeah? It's a very important verse. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldees to give you the land to take possession of it. First word, but Abraham said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that this will happen? Right? Is this, prove it. Is that great faith? That's not great faith. Everything God says, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. That is not Abraham's bumper sticker, right? That's not how that goes. This is not. Abraham's questioning God all over the place. And then what do you get after that? What's 18 and 19? That's Sodom and Gomorrah, just barely associated with Abraham. It happens. God is protecting the offspring of Abraham, so he's clearing out the land. But that's 2 chapters. Doesn't have a lot to do with Abraham, really. More to do with Lot, and so not much there. Oh, that was 18 and 19. We were just at 15. What was 16? Sorry. 16. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Can't skip 16. Sorry, I jumped ahead. What's after 15? You're going to have a son. What's chapter 16? Hagar. Oh, you're going to have a son. Oh, you didn't mean right now? Well, we don't know what that means, God. And so Sarai says, why don't you just sleep with Hagar? Right? Abraham believed God. About what? A son. The very next chapter is Hagar. Is this a good story or a bad one? Not that good. Not that good, right? And if you don't know, his wife says, listen, I'm pretty old. You're pretty old. Why don't you sleep with her? She's pretty young. And maybe that's how this whole thing's supposed to turn out. So he sleeps with Hagar, and Ishmael's born. And is the Hagar story a demonstration of Abraham's faith? It's not. Again, it's not. It's weak faith. Chapter 17. Chapter 17 starts with this. Abraham is now 99 years old. 99. Have you ever met a 99-year-old person? That's pretty old, right? He's 99. The whole journey has started when he was 75. That's pretty old. But 99, that's pretty old, right? He's been waiting now 25 years. All that, those stories we just had, that covered 25 years of Abraham's life. So when you say, oh, God doesn't really ever talk to me, even Abraham would feel that way, by the way. There's not a lot of conversations between Abraham and God, right? 25 years has passed. Chapter 17. God also said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you're no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. She's 10 years younger than him, so she's 90, right? 90. Abraham fell face down and worshiped. Is that what it says? No. Literally, Abraham fell down laughing. He fell down laughing. He fell down. Dangerous at 99. It's risky. It's very risky. He fell down and laughed. This is good faith. Amazing faith. He's the father of faith. When we read Romans, we got to be careful to know the stories. It's going to make way more sense to us if we understand. Get into the text. Understand all the stories. When Abraham fell face down, he laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Come on. Ridiculous. That's a sentence of faith right there, right? God said it. I believe it. That settles it. Yes? No. Pretty much the exact opposite of that. Like, listen, I waited a long time for this party, but that ship has sailed. Will a son be born to 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael might live on it. Listen, what you're asking is now too much work. I don't even want another kid. The whole thing is, how about Ishmael? I already got Ishmael. Can we just do it, let's do the whole plan through Ishmael? God's going to say, yeah, I'll bless Ishmael, but no, we can't change the plan. Then God said, yes, but your wife Sarah will also bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descent. What did Sarah do when she found out? She belly laughed as well. God said to Abraham, why is she laughing? That's funny. As for Ishmael, I heard you. I will surely bless him. Why would God bless Ishmael? Because it's the covenant. I'm going to bless you. Can God curse Ishmael and not have that feel like a curse to Abraham? Can God curse your children and you feel blessed by God? No. Of course God has to bless Ishmael. Abraham doesn't even have to ask for that. It's part of the covenant. So of course God's going to answer yes. Of course. No matter what you do, Abraham, it's going to turn out to be a blessing. Oh, you're going to sleep with Hagar and have a kid? Well, he's going to be a blessing. Guess what? I'm going to bless him too. It's just how it's going to go because it's the covenant. This is the agreement that God obligated himself to. As for Ishmael, I heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful, and he will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation. I told you I would do all that already, Abraham, but yes, here, I'll spell it out for you. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to bless those who bless you. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you. Read that out loud. By this time next year. So Abraham has to do something. Wink, wink. Right? He does have to do something. What does he have to do? You know. He does have to do that. Because how long does he have? If you're going to have a kid next year, do the math. Then chapter 18 and 19 are Sodom and Gomorrah. God's preparing the nursery, right? He's getting the spiders out, if you know what I mean. And then what's chapter 20? What's the very next story after this sentence? Of Abraham. Now, Abraham moved on from there to the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar, and there Abraham said of his wife Sarah, she's my sister. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah, and took her into his harem. What? Wait, what? By this time next year, you're going to have a kid. Oh, hey, hon, I thought we'd move to a new neighborhood. And I know, it's only like 5 miles from here. I know it's a lot of work to move, but we're just going to move across town. Oh, and by the way, when we get there, I'm going to tell everyone you're available. And if they come and get you, I'm going to let them. That clearly is immense faith. Right? Now that's envious faith right there. That's massive father of faith kind of stuff. Right? Well, that right there is about as weak of faith as a person of faith could have. Well, what Bible story would you point to for a person of faith that would have less faith than that right there, this time next year? So he has to sleep with her and then assume maybe you're pregnant. I don't know. And then give her away. Like, that is painful, isn't it? It's painful. She is pregnant when he gives her away. Like God's promises are totally coming true. God is keeping his word. God is being faithful to the covenant. But not Abraham. Not Abraham. Ready for Romans? Romans will make a lot more sense now. All right, let's read the book of Romans. It's not through the law. It's not through the law that Abraham and his offspring received the promise that he would be heir of the world, but through the righteousness that comes by faith. Why, pray tell, would God not make a covenant with Abraham that sounds something like this? Abraham, I want to bless the whole world through you. So if you would be obedient to me and demonstrate great faithfulness, then you would be the kind of person that I could work through, and I will save you, and I will save the world through a righteous person like you. Why wouldn't God do that? Because could have Abraham pulled that off? No. Could you pull that off? If God said to you, like, listen, I will save you. If you would be the father of self-righteousness, of really deservedness, like you live such a life that when all humanity stands before me, I will have to honor you. And believe me, I will. No, we're out. We're just out. So when he says in Romans, like, it's not through the law, you don't just think timeline. Well, that's because, of course, it can't be through the law because the law comes 400 years later. Now, that's true, but it can't come through the law for any of us because we can't do it. We can't do it. Like, by this time next year, I will come through. And we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it a year. We're just not. That's who we are. Good people don't go to heaven. Do you know why? There's no one righteous, not even one. When they came up to Jesus and they said, good master, Jesus stopped him right up the front. Like, you don't think I'm God, so why are you calling me good? What do you mean by good? Who's good? Only God is good. Now, Jesus is God, but don't throw that around so lightly. It's not through the law. For if those who depend on the law are heirs, faith means nothing, and the promise is worthless, because the law brings wrath, and where there is no law, there's no transgressions. 3 profoundly important sentences right here. First one, if those who depend on the law are heirs, heirs of the world, heirs of, I'm going to bless the whole world through you. You, Abraham, are going to be the father of the whole world through faith, right? That's the heirs of the world. That's what that is. If those who depend on the law are heirs, faith means nothing and the promise is worthless. What he's saying is the law and faith are opposites. They're not of the same fabric. And why they're opposites is that faith or receiving the gift, the covenant of Abraham, that's all about God. It's all about the giver of the covenant. I will bless you. I will make your name great. I will bless those who bless you. I will bless the whole world through you. That's about God. The law is not at all about the giver. It's about the receiver. I will do good. I will earn it. I will deserve it. It's all about me. It has nothing to do with the giver. And it's a promise. So a promise, I promise I will give each of you $1 million if you can, and now I just fill in the blank so that you can't get it, right? I can sound awesome by giving you a promise, but if I tie it to you, I can make it so that the promise is worthless. But if it's just faith, if I just give you my word, and then it's all about me, then I either come through or not. This side, you either earn it or you don't. And this side, I either am faithful or I'm not. But it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the promise. That side, any promise over there is worthless, right? If you clean your room, I will take us all out for ice cream. Then the kid goes and cleans his room, and I can go over there and go, let me get my white glove, and I can find dust and go, next time do it better, right? You can't hold me to the promise if I tie it to behavior, because you can always find a loophole in behavior, right? It's how behavior works. And so parents do these kind of promises. It's an easy way to make you sound good and them bad. But if you just swear, if you just promise, if it's unconditional, then you're either faithful or you're not to your word. You see the difference? You just can't tie them together. They just don't go together. Salvation, righteousness, if anyone at all is going to be saved, it cannot by definition be tied to behavior. It can't. It's got to be to faith. And And now, also because of the law. The law itself is set up. If you obey, the law it only brings wrath because it demands perfection. And you can do perfect every single day. James, if you obey the entire law and yet you fail at just one point, you're as guilty as everyone else. Why? Because the law brings wrath. The law demands 100%. If you fully obey everything I command you today, that's how the law starts. The law itself wasn't about salvation. God already established how salvation was going to happen 450 years. God's doing something totally different with the law than salvation. Here, unbelievably important sentence. You just can't make this sentence more important than it is. And where there is no law, there's no transgression. What happens when Abraham gives his wife away the last time? Now, he gave her away the first time. Pharaoh gave him tons of stuff. And then he questioned God, how can I know? And God answered those questions with, well, let me bless you. Let me take you outside and count the stars. That's how I'm going to bless you that much. And now, 1 year from today, I'm going to give you a child. And Abraham gives her away again. And what does God do? You know the answer. He blesses him again. He blesses him again. Can Abraham break the covenant? Nope. That's the point of the entire sermon. Why? Because it's all one-sided. Can Abraham try to break the covenant? Yes. Did Abraham try to break the covenant? Yes, he did. He actually tried. The 2 times when God brought the son back up, Abraham gives the first time and last. First thing he does out of the gate. Well, let's get rid of this girl, right? Let's get rid of this girl. The third time, or the middle time, when he's actually declared righteous, the first story is Hagar. Like all three. Here's the theme. Abraham is consistently working against the covenant, but he can't break it. And does God ever discipline Abraham? No wrath for Abraham. No wrath. Why no wrath? Because there's no law yet. The law brings wrath. All Abraham has to work with is promise. And God always keeps his promises. So Abraham gets life. And he can work against it all he can. And God is not going to show him wrath. Do you see that? So Abraham cannot become unrighteous. He has a working, good relationship with God. Does he deserve that relationship? Has he earned that relationship? Has his mighty faith saved him? No. What saved him? The promise of God. It's all on God's shoulders. Paul is saying, well, look at the very next verse. Therefore, the promise comes by faith, so that it may be by grace, unearned, unmerited favor. Clearly, Abraham did not earn it, so that it can be by grace and may be what? Guaranteed. It's guaranteed. It's guaranteed to all Abraham's offspring. Therefore, the promise comes by faith, so that it may be guaranteed. I saw this little YouTube exercise. I'm going to try to do it in front of you. I really didn't. I made that up. But what I'm going to do is I saw this YouTube video where someone built a chair and they were able to sit in it. And I am a very, very good builder. I don't know if you know that about me. I'm a very good builder. So I think I can build a chair. So I'm going to do it in front of you, and I will demonstrate the chair. So this will only take a second. I'm really good at it, so. How am I doing so far? Perfect. Pretty good. Perfect. Pretty good chair, right? Pretty good chair. Pretty good chair. All right. So I'm going to take this other piece. I'm going to do the same thing because chairs should be symmetrical on some level. And I'm pretty confident in my own building abilities, as I will demonstrate. Look at that. That's pretty good. Pretty good so far, right? Got a couple twins here. All right, so now what I'm going to do, James, can you help me? Just hold these two right here. That's about chair width. Yeah, right there. That'd be good. All right, so.
Choice of materials, too.
Good choice, right? Good choice. All a chair needs now. Can you spread that out just a bit? Yeah, right there. Right there. Now, what they said in the video was that if you use this kind of tape, this kind of tape makes this very, very strong. I don't want the legs to spread apart when I sit on it. Right, that would be dangerous. So, let me get the legs here. Okay. All right, I like it. It's good. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's good. All right. Here's my chair. Uh-oh. Okay, it needs one more piece. This is the key piece right here. All right, where should this go? This should go something like this. If I bring this diagonally, it should. I'll just. Ha! Told you. I told you. Ready? I'll bet it's going to hold me. I think it'll hold me. Here I go. If Abraham can do it, I can fall down too, right? Would it matter how strong my faith is in that chair? No. What if I doubled down on how hard I believed it would hold me? Would it help? What if I tripled down? What if I tripled down on how hard I was believing that would hold me? Would that matter? It wouldn't matter. Now, this chair has made me very nervous about all chairs. Now I'm nervous about chairs. I'm nervous. I'm very nervous. It's a chair. That one made me nervous. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. Does it matter how nervous I am? What if I double down on my nervousness? What if I tripled? What if I quintuple my nervousness? Would it matter? It wouldn't matter, would it? It would not. It would not matter. Because the amount of faith is irrelevant. Do you see that? That's what Paul's saying. It's not the amount of faith. It's what the faith is in. You can put it in, you can have all the confidence you want in the wrong stuff, but Abraham's faith is weak. But the promise is guaranteed. Now, you can't fully appreciate that if you don't look at Abraham's life stories. The very stories God handpicked for Moses. Like, this is who your father is. He's kind of sketchy, to be honest. I think I can do better than Abraham. I think I can do better than that. But it's not about doing better. This is like Hebrews chapter 11. Read the list. Faith, Abraham, Moses, Samson. He would give Abraham a run for his money on no faith. And yet, God is saying through Paul, it's not through the law that you will be declared righteous. It's not because you're in a special group that you will be declared righteous. You won't even be declared righteous based on the strength of your faith. Not even the strength of your faith. You could have faith like Abraham, and you'll be fine. He's in fact the father of faith. He wouldn't believe a word out of my mouth. Not a single time. Amazing. It may be guaranteed to all Abraham's offspring, not only to those who are of the law, not only to that group that's coming up, but also to those who have faith like him, not of the law. I'm going to save people in both groups. The law clearly then can't have something to do with salvation. You have to be saved. You got to follow the law. No, Abraham's the father of the people who are going to follow the law and people who aren't going to follow the law. What? He's the father of us all. Against all hope. Listen to the generosity of God. This is again like Hebrews 11. God's outrageously generous. When we would simply believe in the smallest of ways, God credits it as righteousness. We then now have a relationship with the Father like Jesus has with the Father. And Jesus' faith in God is tremendous. And so God, if Abraham is truly righteous, if he truly gets the credit for Jesus' righteousness, then the language is going to be outrageous about Abraham's faith. And yet if you read the stories, clearly Abraham's getting credit for someone else's faith. That's us. Against all hope, Abraham in hope believed God and so became the father. Against all hope, Abraham, where is that story? I think we read all of them, right? He must be getting credit for someone's faith even. What? Against all hope, Abraham in hope believed God and so became the father of many nations. Just as it has been said, so shall your offspring be. God is going to keep the covenant because it's God's covenant. Without weakening. What? Oh yeah, oh no. This is the one night where they had sex. Without weakening his faith, he went into the bathroom, looked in the mirror. I still got it. He faced the fact that his body was as good as dead since he was about 100 years old, and that Sarah's womb was also dead. Yet he didn't waver through unbelief. Come on, Sarah. But was strengthened in his faith and gave glory to glory, being fully persuaded that God had the power to do what he promised. That's all that one night. That's all we're talking about here. This is why it's credited to him as righteous. What? I can do that. I could muster that much faith. When I look in the mirror and go, man, Bruce, are you believing it? Do you have doubts? Or do you believe hard enough? I just got to read Abraham and go, I'm doing fine. The words, it was, yeah, okay, let's listen, this is beautiful. The words, it was credited to him as righteousness. God gave him a different relationship with himself than the one he deserved. He gave him a different kind of a relationship. He gave him gift righteousness. He gave him Jesus' standing. The words that was credited to him as righteousness were not written for him alone, but also for us, to whom God would credit righteousness. No one's ever been saved by being good. No one. No one's been saved because they have powerful faith. God does not work by powerful faith. This is another lie. Show me that person. For us who believe, I don't know. I'm gonna trust Jesus. Oh, your faith isn't enough. It's not about your faith. Jesus is the chair. Jesus is the strong chair, not the weak chair. Very little faith. Very little faith. Question it the whole way through. For us who believe in him, who raised Jesus, our Lord, from the dead, here it is. He was delivered over to death for your sins. He was raised for your justification. That's the gospel. That's the gospel. That's the good news. Jesus paid for your debt in his death. When he rose again, he had your innocence bought. And if you'll have one shade of belief, just in a moment, it's not the strength of our faith. It's the strength of the payment. Because it's a one-sided covenant. And when there is no law, there is no way to break it. When you don't have half of the covenant as your responsibility, if God bears the whole weight of the responsibility, then you can't lose it. You get someone else's credit, and that's Jesus's. That's the gospel. So all the extrapolation from there. When you pray, do you pray as a friend of God? You should, because you get Christ's righteousness. You have Jesus' relationship with God. When you pray, do you feel bad asking for things because you don't end up delivering on your side of the coin? You shouldn't, because you get Christ's righteousness. Do you pray like God loves you or that he has stuff against you? You should pray like he loves you and wants to hear from you because you have Christ's righteousness. Look how God treated Abraham. He never treated him the way Abraham responded back to him, ever. And Paul's saying that's us. It's us. It's God's good. He's very, very good. All right, hope that made sense for you. Let's pray.